Hey, it's me, Ajeski, and today we're talking about something I find really interesting. That's the weird kind of similarities between Sonic 06 and Sonic Frontiers, how they're really similar on certain things, and yet almost complete opposites on others. Now before we start though, I will have to ask you to please like and sub as it really helps out the channel. We're trying to hit 500 subscribers sooner than later. Anyways, let's hop right into the video. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is the similarities between Sonic 06 and Sonic Frontiers, starting with the actual aesthetic. Now, both of these games have a very similar aesthetic. They both prioritize a lot of realism into their environments. This is most commonly seen together in like Kingdom Valley and Kronos Island. You can draw a clear comparison between these two and how they present themselves as a kind of forgotten city, lost to time, overgrown with grass everywhere. It's a pretty clear-cut comparison. I would say there's a clear connection in terms of art style and really art direction overall when it comes to Frontiers and 06, but that's not really the only similarity they have between the both of them. I want to talk next about the music of both games. Now, this is a really interesting thing that I don't ever think gets pointed out, ever, and I think is a real point of contention in terms of similarities between these two games. Now, Sonic Frontiers uses a lot of the same chord progressions that are found in the Sonic 06 soundtrack. For example, the main theme of Sonic Frontiers, that being I'm Here, actually has the exact same chord progression as a song from Sonic 06. Take a listen. Yeah, I bet you guys haven't heard of that one before. But, you know, it's not the only example, it's just the biggest one that I'll bring up today. My point is that 06 and Frontiers have a lot of the same ideas going on in their soundtrack. If you don't know, they were both composed by a composer named Tomoyo Ohtani, who has been a serial composer for a lot of Sonic games, like Gens, Colors, the works pretty much. Everything up from 06 to Frontiers he has composed. Now, Sonic Frontiers gets most of the same chord progressions from 06 in terms of the orchestral department, so, you know, like the cutscene music and stuff, which I'll admit is pretty underrated. If you go take a listen to the entire 06 soundtrack, you'll have a much better appreciation for it overall, instead of just the level music and the main themes like Dreams of an Absolution and His World. And seriously though, I can't recommend the orchestral bits of the 06 soundtrack enough. If you haven't listened to him before, I genuinely suggest taking a good listen to him. Another interesting little fact that I think is kind of interesting and ties these two games together is they were actually had the same game director both times, that being Morio Kishimoto. He not only directed Sonic 06, but he also directed Sonic Frontiers as well, and you can tell a lot of his stylistic decisions are in both of those games, like I said, through like the realism in the style of the environments. Now that's pretty much all I have to say about the similarities of Sonic 06 and Sonic Frontiers. On to the differences. The next thing that we're going to do is discuss all the main differences between Sonic 06 and Sonic Frontiers, starting off with the actual art style and overall presentation. Now, I'm going to be completely honest with you guys. I think Sonic 06 is much better at presenting itself than Frontiers is. Frontiers suffers a lot from clearly rushed development and a lot of pop-in overall. And I'm not saying there isn't pop-in Sonic 06, I'm saying it's a lot harder to notice than it is in Sonic Frontiers, where you know there it's really hard to miss as it's almost everywhere. I'd also say that Sonic 06 is much better at actually presenting its overall levels, like they look more visually interesting. For example, Kingdom Valley and Kronos Island, if you compare both of those together, I would say Kingdom Valley looks much more visually interesting than something like Kronos Island, which looks very big and very empty. In fact, I think that's a large reason of why Frontiers was met with so much backlash at first, because it didn't look visually interesting. That actually leads me to my next point, talking about the differences between these two games, is actually the overall reception of both these games. If you don't know, Sonic 06 was not well received at all, in case you somehow missed that, and Frontiers was actually really well received. You know, that's kind of obvious, you know, but let's take it back to when they were first revealed. If you don't know, Sonic 06, when it was first revealed, was actually met with almost unanimous praise. Everybody thought it was going to be the best Sonic game ever made, and if we take a look at Sonic Frontiers' initial, like, teasers and stuff, it was met with almost unanimous hate. Everybody hated those original trailers for Sonic Frontiers, and who can blame them? They didn't do a very good job of showcasing the game, where with 06 they did an exceptional job showing that game, so much so that they made everybody think the game was going to be a masterpiece. Another weird thing about these games is that they had very similar development cycles. Like, they were very similar in terms of how the production went and stuff, in the way that they were both utter chaos and they had almost next to no idea where they were going with all of it. That's kind of the same way that it went with Frontiers and both 06 as well. It's no secret that 06 had a very difficult development time, considering the team had to be consistently cut bit by bit to work on other Sonic games. For example, they took half a Sonic team and dipped to go work on Secret Rings and took another quarter of Sonic team to go work on some other game. I think it was the Hedgehog engine, so they could have it for like the next Sonic game, which ended up being Sonic Unleashed. But Sonic Frontiers had just as hard of a development cycle as 06 did. If we can look back at those 4chan leaks about Sonic Frontiers, way back when it was still called Sonic Rangers at the time, it didn't test very well. A lot of people really did not like it, the people who at least tested it anyways. They said it was too empty, there wasn't very much going on, and it was just a really boring experience, which, you know, put a lot of stress and worry on Sonic Team and Sega as a whole, just like 06 did. Sonic 06 and Sonic Frontiers also had to meet a very specific deadline because Sega would not allow any delays at all, and you can definitely feel that in both of the releases between Sonic 06 and Sonic Frontiers. Now, this really leads me to my next overall point of where these games really differ is at their core, because these two games had completely different priorities when it came down to releasing them. Sonic 06 wanted to be a game that looked cool, and Sonic Frontiers wanted to be a game that felt cool. 06 is very good at looking cool, absolutely, and Sonic Frontiers is very good at feeling cool. It feels great to play as Sonic. That's pretty much all I have to say for the differences between 06 and Frontiers. On to the conclusion. In conclusion, these games are just as similar as they are different. They have a lot of things in common, some things I didn't even really mention in this video. Like, I could have mentioned the bosses from 06 feeling like almost predecessors to the bosses from Frontiers, you know, the Titan fights, and similar, because they're similar in like scale and stuff. However, I would say the biggest similarity is also the biggest difference between these two games. They both kind of fail at finding a happy medium of sorts. Sonic 06 looks really cool, but it doesn't feel very cool to play. And Sonic Frontiers isn't as visually interesting as 06 is, but it feels really fun to play. And I'm not completely discrediting either one of those games, really. 06 has great level design, it just doesn't have the greatest control ever. And Sonic Frontiers is a technically superior game on a technical level. It has beautiful lighting, and all the models are very well done. It just lacks that visual pop and presentation that 06 just naturally has. I'd say ironically, though, that's probably the reason it was much more well received than 06. Sonic Frontiers just feels so absolutely fun to play. That's why the critics and overall fan base likes it so much more than they like 06, because despite 06 looking cool, most people would rather play a game that feels cool, and that's what Frontiers really exceeds at. That's pretty much all I have to say for this video, though. If you guys liked it, could you please like and sub, as it really helps out the channel. We're trying to hit 500 subscribers sooner than later. Anyways, it was a Jet Ski, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.